There is a strange moment that happens to almost every person who starts earning more than they used to. The numbers in the account grow, the lifestyle upgrades, the clothes get better, the dinners get longer, and yet somewhere beneath all of it, a quiet feeling refuses to leave. It shows up late at night when the noise of the day finally dies down. It shows up on Sunday evenings when the mind drifts toward Monday. It shows up in the middle of a vacation that was supposed to fix something. And the feeling is always the same. Nothing has actually changed. The scenery is different, the income is higher, the title on the email signature is more impressive, but the internal weight has not moved. Most people blame themselves for this. They assume they need more discipline, a better morning routine, a new investment, a smarter side hustle. But the real answer is almost never what they think. Nothing changes in a person's life until their money stops needing them. And almost no one is taught what that actually means. To understand it, you have to look closely at the relationship most people have with the money they earn. Money, for the average earner, behaves exactly like a dependent. It needs to be watched. It needs to be protected. It needs to be moved from one account to another. It needs to be defended from inflation, from lifestyle creep, from surprise expenses, from bad decisions made at 2 in the morning. It constantly asks for attention, and the person constantly provides it. The paycheck arrives, and immediately a mental negotiation begins. What must be paid? What must be postponed? What must be hidden from the version of themselves that wants to spend? This is not wealth. This is management. And management is exhausting, because the human being is the engine powering every rupee, every dollar, every decision. The moment the engine stops, the money stops. That is the trap most people live inside, without ever naming it. There is a phrase people like to throw around. They say they want financial freedom. But if you ask them what that actually looks like in practice, most of them describe a slightly richer version of their current situation. A bigger house, a nicer car, a longer vacation. These are not freedom. These are upgrades to the cage. True freedom has a very specific signature, and it is quiet, almost boring when you first see it. It looks like a person whose money works without being asked. It looks like income that arrives, whether the person wakes up early or sleeps till noon. It looks like a system that does not collapse the moment attention is removed from it. And the reason almost no one reaches this state is not because they lack information. It is because they have never emotionally separated from the idea that money is something they must constantly hold up with their own hands.
Think about how this plays out in ordinary life. A person gets a raise. Within weeks, their expenses silently rise to match it. A person gets a bonus. Within months, it is absorbed into a lifestyle that now requires that bonus to sustain itself. A person starts earning double what they earned 3 years ago, and somehow they feel the same pressure they felt back then, maybe worse. This is not a coincidence. It is the natural behavior of money that depends on its owner. It grows in appetite faster than it grows in size. And the owner, exhausted, begins to believe the problem is that they simply do not earn enough yet. So they work harder, they take on more, they sacrifice more evenings, more weekends, more slow mornings with people they love. And still, the feeling does not leave, because the structure has not changed, only the numbers have. There is a second layer to this that is even harder to accept. Most people are not just financially dependent on their money, they are emotionally dependent on it. Their self-worth rises and falls with their account balance. Their mood is decided by the notification on their banking app. Their confidence in a room is quietly shaped by whether they feel financially safe that week. When money is in this kind of position in a person's psychology, it cannot be built into something powerful because it is already doing a full-time job holding the person's identity together. You cannot invest calmly when every rupee carries the weight of your self-image. You cannot make long-term decisions when short-term fear is sitting on top of every choice. The money needs the person emotionally, and the person needs the money emotionally, and both are stuck in a loop that looks like ambition but behaves like anxiety.
The shift begins in a place no financial book really talks about. It begins with the quiet, almost unsettling realization that the goal was never to have more money. The goal was to build a version of money that does not require your presence to function. That single sentence, if you sit with it long enough, rearranges how you see almost every financial decision you have ever made. Suddenly, buying something expensive to feel better is no longer a reward. It is a tax on your future freedom. Suddenly, working harder to earn more without building anything that lasts is no longer impressive. It is just a more elegant form of the same trap. Suddenly, the point of earning is not to consume more, but to quietly, patiently construct something that can eventually stand on its own.
And here is where most people fail, not out of ignorance, but out of impatience. Building money that does not need you is slow. It is unglamorous. It does not photograph well. It does not produce stories that impress anyone at dinner. For a long time, it looks like nothing is happening. Small amounts go into the right places. Small decisions are made correctly. Small temptations are refused without drama. There is no applause, no milestone worth posting, no visible transformation. In a culture addicted to visible progress, this kind of slow construction feels almost like failure, and so people abandon it, usually right before it would have started working. They return to the louder game of earning and spending, and they call it ambition because the word trap feels too uncomfortable to use. If you watch people who have actually crossed this line, the ones whose money truly does not need them anymore, you notice something strange about how they behave. They are not loud about it. They are not obsessed with it. They do not talk about money the way people trying to prove something talk about money. There is a kind of stillness in them, because a war has ended inside them. They are no longer negotiating with every expense. They are no longer performing a version of themselves for their bank account. Money has moved from the center of their attention to the edge of it, which is exactly where it was always meant to be. And this stillness is not the reward of being rich. It is the reward of being free from needing to think about being rich. There is a cold truth underneath all of this, and it is worth saying plainly. Most people will spend their entire working lives being needed by their money. They will retire later than they wanted, work harder than they should have, and arrive at the end of their careers with a tired body and a mind that still flinches when it looks at a bank statement. Not because they were lazy, not because they were stupid, but because no one ever told them that the entire game was the relationship, not the income. They were taught to chase a bigger number, and they chased it honestly, and the number grew, and the cage grew with it. And by the time they understood, the best years for building quiet, patient, self-sustaining money had already passed. The people who escape this are rarely the ones who earn the most. They are the ones who, at some ordinary moment, in an ordinary year, made an internal decision that most people never make. They decided that their life would no longer be organized around feeding their money. Their money would be organized around funding their life. That sentence sounds small, but it rewires everything. It changes what you buy, what you refuse, what you build, what you ignore, how you spend your weekends, which opportunities you say yes to, which ones you walk away from, and most importantly, who you become in the process. Because in the end, this was never really about money. It was about sovereignty. It was about whether the hours of your life belong to you or to the thing you are constantly trying to earn, protect, and manage. A person whose money needs them is, in a very real sense, owned by it, no matter how high the salary climbs. A person whose money no longer needs them owns something most people will never touch, not because it is rare, but because it is quiet, and the quiet things in life are almost always the ones people overlook while chasing the loud ones. So, the question worth sitting with, tonight and tomorrow and the week after, is not how much more you need to earn. It is a harder question, and it does not flatter anyone who asks it honestly. How much of your current life is spent taking care of your money instead of your money taking care of you? How many of your decisions are still shaped by the fear of what happens if you stop? How much of your identity is quietly financed by a salary that requires you to remain exactly who you are? Because until something shifts there, at the level of the relationship itself, the numbers will keep moving, and the life behind them will not. Nothing changes. Nothing truly changes. Not until the day your money stops needing you, and you finally find out who you were underneath all the noise it was making.